Drawing. One of the oldest pastimes in human history is something I had yet to ever try with any real effort. So here's my brief drawing journey that may or may not convince you to try and do the same. So you might be wondering what inspired me to draw after all these years, as I had almost no interest until starting this video. So I was scrolling through Instagram when I stumbled upon this image of Dom Tomato, wearing a shirt with a sketch on it that looked like Manpower, one of the most iconic parkour gaps in France, which I'd first seen David Belle complete years and years ago in a clip from District 13. There's something about the shape of the takeoff building and the distance that is so interesting, and people have been replicating this jump for years. So out of nowhere, after seeing this t-shirt, the idea of drawing other iconic parkour locations or architecture sounded like a super enjoyable thing to attempt. I really don't have any drawing experience, and the last time I remember really drawing anything was this thing from the 7th grade that I went and found at my parents' house to show you. I had in my mind before getting it that it was really next level, but I realize now I've set a pretty low bar to beat on this drawing journey. So that's the goal, just try and draw better than my 7th grade self in 7 days. Before starting, I picked up some highly rated materials on Amazon, and without having used a drawing pencil before, it just seemed like a nice set of chopsticks, which I'm okay with. Day 1 of drawing was brutal. I went in without watching any videos or getting any input, and I couldn't even remember how people do that shadow ball thing, so I just moved on to drawing a house without picking up my pencil, which was the peak of my current skills. Drawing faces on buildings, you know how it goes. At this point, I was just trying to finish day 1. Having totally failed day 1, I let myself watch some experts on YouTube.
Because that's what everything is. Everything is broken down into just basic shapes. But for now, just get the simple concept of massing out shapes like this.
Schaefer art really helped me understand the power of just sketching lines and turning shapes into what you want over time, which had a huge improvement on my drawing stroke. I also found this guy who gave some golden advice.
So there is a major part of it missing in the middle. So we have to cut all of these elements out of our rectangular prism. And with that, I can move on to the third shape that I was isolating.
So that advice from Robert Kiss totally clicked for me, and I dove back into more day 1 just to practice what I had learned about isolating objects and then just cutting away the pieces mentally like a sculpture. This was much easier for me to visualize, and my drawing practice went substantially better. Day 2 was off to a better start with the advice I had collected. I was excited about how this ball turned out, even as basic as it was, and then I got a bit more ambitious attempting some perspective drawings, even attempting this fisheye perspective, as if you're standing on the street, which I'd recently seen in another YouTube video, until I was doing the roofs, and I realized I had totally lost my mind and forgot the basic rules of perspective.
It was at this moment that he knew.
I decided it was time to get some more information, so I hopped onto Amazon and bought this book, which promptly arrived the next day. But it was time to draw, not to read, so I dove into day 3 by trying to imitate these buildings. But I wasn't really feeling imitating someone else's drawing, so I tried to just draw something I knew from memory, but soon found myself getting so bored of drawing progressively worse cobblestones and wondering if they even exist here in Dust 2, which there weren't, but then I realized a little bit later that I had 1.6 in my head. I moved on to other things, and some of them, like this plant and this little robot, I was pretty proud of, and actually started enjoying the drawing rather than just trying to achieve some end goal. I wasn't yet in reading mode, but felt like I needed more direction. So I gave my buddy a call who had recently evolved from simple sketches to wildlife works of art in a matter of months.
Yo,
So glad we could chat.
dude, thanks for calling.
So this may surprise you, but I think I want to get into drawing. But the problem is I'm absolutely terrible at it.
Well, first off, yes, I am surprised. And second, yeah, whatever you need, I'm here.
We chatted a lot about drawing, his adventure, and then we got into talking about the guy who drew an ibis every day, Struthless.
I got really bored of drawing ibises, but I still wanted to commit to the advice. So I was like, well, shoot, if I'm going to draw ibises, I may as well make them interesting. Screw it, I'm going to add jokes.
The guy is great, and his advice is just so applicable given he has such a down-to-earth understanding of the everyday struggle. And the advice that my buddy gave me was more or less the same.
Creativity loves constraints.
And he kept just reiterating the fact that it was that mindset that made him almost entirely focus on drawing trout. And then his work, as you can see, really started to take off and evolve. Day 5. It was finally time to just read. I browsed through the book before going to sleep, knowing there was a ton to cover, and I had to catch a flight in the morning, which would be perfect to finally read through a chunk of this thing. It was too hard to draw on the plane, so it forced me to just absorb new concepts. A couple days after I got back, I jumped to a place in the book I had wanted to practice. It was architecture related and seemed to be simple enough to pull off and allow me to just get better. I was actually feeling like I was replicating the exercises from the book pretty well and following the instructions. And then this right here was the last time I ever drew in this book. Walked away to work on something else and never came back. I had tried to absorb so much new instruction that I needed to implement, and since I had only given myself 7 days, I felt like the time was up to blow my 7th grade self out of the water. I needed a lot more practice and wasn't quite sure what I could be successfully drawing in one shot for day 7. For a couple of months, I worked on other projects and videos until I found this stack of Post-its in the drawer by my bed and thought I might just start practicing on this small canvas instead. And I found myself drawing a little picture before bed every few days. It was zero pressure. I had no requirements. I had no camera rolling. It absolutely felt like cheating because here I was not drawing on camera or part of the 7 days. But this is totally what drawing is supposed to be about. And that is the crazy twist in this whole venture. I thought it'd take me 7 days to figure out whether I like to draw or not, and instead it took me 6 months. I may not have crushed my 7th grade skills, but I did finally draw some parkour locations and other architecture as I had hoped, which is all that really mattered in the end. So if you haven't drawn before, pick up a Post-it note and just doodle something small each day, and really soon you'll figure out if drawing is for you. Plus, your to-do list will never be the same.